Hey, what's up, you guys? I'm Sara Lubratt, the host of the Passion Paycheck podcast. Welcome to the first ever episode. Today we are talking to Traci Quail of Firedrake Artistry, a licensed artist who works with authors to craft beautiful bookshelf decor. This episode is also partly me just fangirling over Traci and her amazing wooden bookshelf decorations, but we talk about books, how she licenses from authors, how she chooses which authors she wants to license from. We talk about getting back into reading, we talk about creative outlets, we talk about imposter syndrome, and so much more. We also talk quite a bit about books in this episode, and so all of the books that are mentioned will be linked down in the description box below. If you're watching this on YouTube, or linked in the show notes if you are listening to this on a podcast platform, you can request them from a local indie bookstore or your library. Once again, thank you for clicking on the first ever episode of the Passion Paycheck podcast. Let's get into the episode. Traci, thank you so much for being the first guest on the Passion Paycheck podcast. Do you want to introduce yourself, say a little bit about your business?
So I am the owner and artist behind Firedrake Artistry. I work with authors and publishing companies to create fan art for their book series and TV shows/movies.
So sick. And what is your tagline? Dragon wings and wooden things?
And wooden things, yeah.
I was immediately hooked when I read that.
I can't take credit for that. We are a family business, and so we started out as Quail Family Creations, and we just kind of made home decor and things like that. And then when I started making my small shelf signs and stuff, I got a lot of friends in the bookish community, and one day I said, I really think I want to rebrand and change my name, and they all went, oh, finally! I was like, wait, nobody told me that I needed to rebrand my name.
Okay,
so I did that. And actually one of my artist friends, Katie, she is the one who came up with, because we were talking about taglines, and I was like, it's got to be about dragons. And she's like, dragon wings and wooden things. She completely came up with that. It was amazing. So yeah, it was a group effort with me and lots of other artists and shops that I've been friends with.
Such a great tagline. Also, like the Firedrake Artistry, such a solid name.
Thank you.
Big fan of dragon themed anything. So
yeah. I actually came up with that name because I'm a huge fan of Tolkien. I love The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. It lives rent free in my head at all times. And I am also obsessed with dragons, and Smaug is the last Firedrake of Middle Earth during that age. So yeah, we just went with it. My friends were just like, well, what are some things you like? What are some things? And a lot of my friends in real life had nicknamed me Phoenix because of the X-Men and her red hair. And so I got that like all the time. But there's so many names out there with the name Phoenix in it. And so we just kind of kept snowballing with other things. And myself and my group of bookish friends were just kind of bouncing stuff back and forth. And that's when I came up with Firedrake Artistry.
You have a background in finance. How did you end up transitioning from finance to wooden things?
So it's actually a funny story. I have gone to school for a very, very long time. I was an art major for a while. I was a nursing major for a couple of years. I also did elementary education, grades K through 8 with a focus in sciences. I was going to be a teacher when my children were little. And then I have 3 children. My 2 oldest are diagnosed with disabilities. My son has various disabilities and is very medically fragile. And I just kind of told myself one day, you cannot support these children on a teacher budget. Let's just be realistic. If something happened to my husband. So I wanted to be better prepared. I thought, what am I good at? I'm good at numbers. So I went to school. I got my master's degree. I got an MBA, and then I got a secondary master's degree in finance. So that is my education, and my bachelor's, I have a bachelor's in accounting as well. And yeah, it kind of, honestly, this is just a fluke. I've always loved art. Like I said, I majored in art when I was younger and was told you couldn't make any money at that. The pandemic hit, and I won't go too much into it, but having medically fragile children, it hits you very different. A pandemic that's medically involved hits you very differently. And I went through a severe depression. Very, very bad. It was very hard for a long time. One of my friends got me back into reading because we were both huge readers in school and in college. And I just kind of stepped away from it for a while to care for my children. And she got me back into reading. I hit it so hard, and I kind of just decided I needed a creative outlet. And so I made these little signs. And the first time I made them, I said, this is really stupid, but I just want to share this with you. I made these for my bookshelf to like make my bookshelf pretty. And I know this is really stupid, but I feel like you'll like get it. And she just went, you have no idea what you just did. And she shared it with a lot of her bookish group stuff, and it just kind of snowballed from there. So that's really how, I mean, I was working telework in finance with a company in another state. And I just ended up stopping all of that and just doing this full time. And I've made and so when people ask me, they're like, so what do you do? I'm like, I don't know. I make art. I make art that has to do with books, and people decorate their home libraries with it. And so they're like, well, where did you learn to do? I don't know. I just kind of made it up. I just kind of started making things, and people started liking them. So I just kept making things.
Yeah. Do you remember what your first design was?
I do.
Okay.
My very, very first design. I am in love with the Six of Crows series. So my very first design was a Six of Crows Grishaverse design. And I was not licensed. I didn't do licensing and stuff like I do now. I didn't know about licensing, but because disabilities is such the forefront of my everyday life, I really, really liked Leah's, how each of the characters were misfits, but some of them had disabilities, but that had nothing to do with their character. Like it wasn't something that made them a token or had anything to do with that. And I absolutely fell in love with her characters. I needed those characters at that time in my life. And so the Grishaverse sign was actually my very first sign I ever made. And then shortly after, I did the Sarah J. Maas ones. Probably way more than you asked for.
No, that's incredible. Thank you for the lengthy answer.
But yeah.
Can I ask what you're reading right now?
Right now, I am reading Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco.
Okay.
Which I'm absolutely in love with. I also just received an arc for my girl Jamin Eve of her new book, Gilded Serpent, I believe, Gilded Wings. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. But there's so many books because I read like 5 or 6 at a time. But those are the 2 I'm reading right now. I'm a mood reader, so I need to read like whatever season it is. And around November timeframe, I will switch quickly over to Hallmark-esque books that are more contemporary romance and small town romance. Yeah, I just read for the seasons.
I am reading Fourth Wing right now. And it is the first book that I think I'm going to finish since February.
I love it.
It's a really good book so far, but like for some reason, just in my personal life, I have not been in the mood to read at all, which I was doing freelancing work and everything. So I was working on like reading and editing other people's books, but I just wasn't reading for fun. Yeah. And now that I have a dragon book back in my life, I'm like, this I'm going to finish. Yeah.
Well, and that will kill it. I've hit that too, where people are like, hey, will you do this for my book or this? And I do have a strict rule where I won't make a sign or I won't do a design if I have not read the book. I won't do it. I personally don't like it. As an artist, it bothers me. As a consumer, you can tell when people have no idea like what they're designing for, or they haven't read the book. So I feel very passionately about that. Yeah, I really did love Fourth Wing. It was really, really good. But it does. The books that bring you back are ones that you definitely remember, because it's hard to keep reading when it's forced. And whenever you're, oh, well, here's this, we'll read this. Okay, but I don't, I'm definitely a mood reader, so I've got to be in the mood. But I am so glad that you are finishing it. Who's your favorite character so far, though?
Oh my gosh, now I'm going to space on all of their names.
I mean, there's a lot.
There's a lot of names. I was kind of amazed at how quickly characters were introduced, and just like so many names, but then you have to know the names because then characters die off. And
yeah. But they're also relevant to the story. They're not just people that she introduced just for the sake of having side characters. They're characters that are really relevant to the entire story. Yep.
But now I'm going to space. I want to say like the female best friend, at least in the part of the book that I'm at. And I want to say her name starts with an R, and I'm spacing.
I don't remember the name because I've read about 14 books since I've read that one. But
It's totally
I'm always
okay.
suspicious of the best friend. I don't know.
Ooh.
I don't know what that says about me, but I'm like, she's sus. She's going to turn her in for this. Or she's going to, come in at the end and it's going to be this. And of course, my friends that have already read the book, when I was reading it, they were just like, no, not even close.
Yeah. We need some female friendships that can like pass the Bechdel test and can be like
Yes.
solid female friendships.
And maybe
Um,
that's what I'm jaded from, is seeing all of, like, as many times as you read, it's always like, oh, she was jealous of the boy, or, it always comes in. It's like, wait, you were my friend. So I feel
True.
like that has just been like an out for so long. I think I'm just trained in it.
Can you take us through what a day in your life of being the owner and artist behind Firedrake looks like?
Oh, I don't know if you have that kind of time. Um, so, like I said before, I have 3 children. We do homeschool.
Mm,
So I get up super, super early. I get up around 5. I'll typically start my machines and I'll work until about 7:30. I have breakfast with the kids. I get them all set up and started. They're 14, 12, and 10, so they're older. Both of my older 2 children have a lot of therapy services and doctor's appointments and things like that. We try and handle all of that by 12 or 1 o'clock
mhm.
in the afternoon. So I basically just have my hands full with that. And then around 12 or 1, I come in my office. I do as much office work as I can. I box up as many orders that are finished, that are done first. And then I'll start assembling and working on other orders until around dinner time when my husband gets home. I'll spend about an hour in the afternoon talking to my authors, coming up with new ideas for signs, checking in on my Patreon, seeing how they're doing, if there's anybody that needs anything over there, checking in with one of my assistants to see if there's anything that they need from me. So I spend about an hour doing that kind of office work. And then I get back to it with making signs and making stuff for orders. My husband gets home around dinner time. Right now, he's got the kids on the golf cart. They're riding around the neighborhood because my house is so loud and so wild all the time. My son's nonverbal, but he likes to like make really, really loud sounds. So if you guys hear that when they come back, that's what that is. But we're just a very loud house. We just are. We're just very loud. And so usually we put the kids to bed, and then my husband and I, for about an hour or 2 in the evenings, we will go out in the shop together and we'll keep working until about 10 or 10:30, and then we go to sleep and do it all over again. But that is, and like I said before, when we talked off camera, I have you to thank a lot for this. And I have other people in my life to thank a lot for this. For a very long time, I was working 7 days a week. I would not take off. I would not take vacation, nothing. There were times that I barely remember seeing my kids, and it was only with therapies and like sitting down having to do things. And now for the last couple of months, we have said it doesn't matter how far behind we are. It doesn't matter if I have to refund a customer because they've had to wait, which thankfully we haven't had to do, or anything like that. But Saturdays and Sundays are family time. We do not work on the weekends anymore. That is time for us to reset. It is time for us to breathe, and everything else will just fall where it falls. But we can't continue to work ourselves to death for something that started out to be fun. Like this is supposed to be fun. This is supposed to be something we're passionate about and that we enjoy, and not something that's going to be killing us. So, and kids grow up fast. Anybody who has kids, anybody who has been a kid, which is everybody, they know, like, life goes by so fast. Several months ago, I had like a really big, like, just kind of breakdown where I said, I can't continue to do this because I'm missing my kids. Like, I'm missing out on so many things. And that's one of the things my son's doctor had explained to us 2 years ago. We were just joking in the doctor's office. We were like, we teeter back and forth. Do we save every penny we have because we know our daughters will need to take care of their brothers someday and we don't want them to worry about money? Or do we spend the money and take the trips? And his neurologist was just like, Jasper is a very, very special little boy. And I hope that he lives a very long and a very happy life. However, we are not promised tomorrow with him. So take the effing trips is what she told me. So we have just really taken that and ran with it and just said Saturdays and Sundays are for us. If we have any opportunities to take a trip with the family, we're going to go do that every single opportunity that we have. We are going to spend the time and make the memories. So that's been a big change for me this year, because my first year in business, it was not like that. My first year in business was everything revolves around the business Monday through Sunday. From the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep, it is nothing but work, 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 and get as many orders out as we can. Which now, hindsight, I look back, I'm like, that was so silly. Like I said, I did this because I wanted to get into it, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I lost sight of that for a while. Because I felt like so many people wanted stuff for me, and I needed to get them. It's never been about money. Every dime of money I've gotten, I've sunk back into the business or gotten bookish stuff. It's been all that kind of stuff. So it's never been about the money. It's always been about, I don't want to disappoint people. I want people to continue to like my stuff and continue to support and those kinds of things. And it just felt such a sense of community when I had been lacking that for so long, that I feel like I was just holding on to that so tightly. And then finally, when I was able to stop and just take a breath, I realized that's still here. The people that weren't going to stay anyways didn't stay. And the genuine people that are like really there, they did. And it's been so much more meaningful. And I have completely taken you on a tangent that I told you I was going to take you on when we started.
I'm here for it. I'm on this tangent with you. I absolutely adore the fact that you are now taking weekends and you're prioritizing family trips when you can. That's something that my therapist had to remind me a lot about when I first started working for myself, of like, you can save the money, but like, you're also working really hard. Like, you can go to an Airbnb for 2 days and be fine. And like, had to like remember that like, I can take a Tuesday afternoon off and go hiking, because that's how I'm like structuring and prioritizing things for myself. And I'm like, really appreciate that you're doing that as well.
Well, and it's hard to not feel the guilt. The guilt of, well, I could be spending this time doing these other things. I'm not being productive enough, or I'm not doing, doing all these things that I think I should be doing. And then I think you finally get to a place where you realize, is that really what I value? Is that really what I find that's important? And if it is, that's great. But if it's not, it's important to be able to make those like necessary adjustments. And that's kind of what I've really been working on. Now, my friends still get on to me. They're like, Traci, go to bed. Traci, you got it. Stop for a minute and eat lunch, because I FaceTime with a lot of my friends during the day. And I'm like, I know, I will. I just need to finish this. They're like, no, stop and go do those things. It is a work in progress. It is something that I'm continually working on. And I think just kind of having those routine checks with yourself, just sitting down with yourself and saying, am I happy with the way things are going? What am I doing to get to where I want to be as far as my mental health, along with everything else that's going on as well? Because you can't, like, I know people say it and I know it's a cliche, but you have to be taking care of yourself if you want to do all of these great things. So, and I was reminded that not this last February, but the February before, we had a little bit of catastrophic success with the business. And I ended up getting an infection that got into my bloodstream because I kept telling myself, I have to work. I don't have time to go to the doctor. I'm not that sick. I'm fine. And I actually went into septic shock. And it was really bad. I was in the hospital for a little bit. And I had the manager of the hospital calling me when I got home. We want to make sure that you're okay. If you're feeling any other symptoms, like it was not a good situation that I had unfortunately put myself in, because I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't listening to my own body. And I do have kidney disease in both kidneys. So those are things that I needed to watch out for. And I just didn't. I wasn't doing what I needed to do for myself, because I was so anxious and just so overwhelmed with all of the things that people were asking of me. All of the things I thought I could do that were taking me 4 times as long to do, which are part of your growing pains as a business. And so that was a huge awakening for me too. That's like, I can't do these things if I'm not here. So I really need to prioritize my health over someone being upset about X, Y, or Z, or me not doing something within a time frame that I felt like I was going to be able to do based on no other information. That, I think that's another thing in the bookish community that people are more forgiving of, is everything's so niche and everything's so new and everything's so specific that people are like, oh, she's still figuring it out. Like, we're going to be a little bit more patient because she's still figuring this out. This isn't something that, people just do all the time.
Absolutely.
I have no
What
idea
was
what to do with that.
That's okay. Again, I'm here to listen to everything that you want to share with me. Do you mind sharing what the catastrophic success was? Because the catastrophic part is very interesting. Was it like
So
a really big
it
sale?
was, everything was just kind of, I had like sales and things were going, and I had a sale here or there, and I was grossing pretty good every single month.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden I created my bookends. Now my bookends I'm very protective of because I looked all over the internet.
Of course, they have a set.
Well, I looked all over the internet and no one had that shape. No one had that frame. Like,
Mhm.
I was just very specific that everything, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. So we're going to layer on this. My husband and I painstakingly spent days out in our garage measuring every little centimeter to make sure that everything fit perfectly and that we had a stable product that we were proud of. I don't know how old those bookends are, but they have gotten better with time. But it's
I adore these, and I'm pretty sure I got them during the first Throne of Glass and
oh,
ACOTAR
you
drop.
did? Well, I'm so glad you do. But they have gotten better. But that first one was December of 2021. I had gotten them approved several months before by the Moss team, and we had been putting them out, and we had just had hundreds of thousands of views and all of these shares and stuff. And I was like, okay, we're going to do a drop for these because they seem to be really popular, so we'll do a drop. And
Mhm.
my husband and I said, okay, how many can we do? Let's just put this many out there. There's no way that's going to sell. And then TikTok and Instagram crashed our server. We were down for 32 minutes. The server was fine. Everybody stayed on with us, thankfully.
I was one of those people.
Were
I
you one of
remember
those
that.
people?
Yes,
Oh
I was.
my gosh. But then they finally were able to get it back up. And in 22 minutes, we sold over $18,000 worth of bookends. So you were one that waited because after we sold them, I went on the couch and I cried because I was like, how am I going to make this many bookends?
Yeah.
And so we went, and just so you know, the skylines have changed a little bit because the two ones that I made for my like reels and all that kind of stuff, I don't remember how I painted the back. I just painted it. So for a week,
Sure.
I sat at my island and I was just cried because I had no idea how I was going to recreate something. I didn't know how I painted it.
Oh,
So I
wow.
just kept like testing things, and then finally I was like, okay, that's how I did it. So a week of you guys not getting your bookends was literally just that. Was me just trying to remember how I painted something, because a lot of stuff that I do, I just kind of feel it and I start doing it, and I drive my husband crazy because he's like, what color did you use? Oh, so I made it up. I used 3 other colors, and he's like, oh my God.
So now
Because
you
you
like can't
can't do
replicate
that.
it the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have gotten better about making sure that I use actual colors that we have and things like that. So yeah, that was one of those. We didn't think we were going to sell that many. We didn't think that it was going to do all of that and it was going to start what it started, but it did.
Mhm.
And so you know better than most that it took me longer than I had promised to get all those ready, because the top backs are 2 pieces glued together. The bottom is 2 pieces glued together. Then those are glued together. There's a back that's painted. There's all these kinds of things that I'm going, okay, by the time you compound that and add that to the number, that it just was so much longer. And I spent 7 days a week working on them. I cried so much during those few months because I was like, people are going to get these and say, I waited this long for these and these are crap, because I have mad imposter syndrome. So I was just terrified that every single person who bought them was just going to send them back and say, nope, this isn't what I waited for. This is not good.
Well, I know that this is like a year and like 9 months too late to comfort you on that. I cried when I unboxed mine. I was so excited to get these. And like Throne of Glass is like my top 2 favorite series of all time. The other one is like the Dragon Slippers series. It's like a middle grade thing that I grew up with. But like early in 2022, yeah,
Mhm.
is roughly when I would have gotten these, is like when I was starting to think about going full time. Like the quote, "You could rattle the stars." Like I was like, I know I have to have that on my bookshelf. And I like got chills. I cried when I unboxed them. I was like, I would have paid more for them, honestly. Like I was so stoked when I got them. And I know that it's so much later and you've already like dealt with probably most of the imposter syndrome around that, but I was so excited to get these.
That means so much to me. And honestly, things like that are what keeps me going, because I meet so many people and they're like, I cried when I got your thing, when I opened up my library sign, or I opened up my bookends. And I'm just like, I tell my husband, sometimes I just have to stop and just appreciate it, because this may sound conceited or whatever, but I'm just like, this came from me. I can say with my whole heart that I sat down and my brain said, this is what you want to make. And I made that thing. And not only do I connect with other people about a book that was so meaningful to so many of us, but I also connect with them through my art. And this sounds so cheesy, but every single thing I make, whether it's just a regular like bookish sign or it's something as special to me as my bookends or my library signs, there is a tiny piece of me in it. And I don't just mean my fingerprints or parts of me that sticks probably to you guys' stuff, but there is a piece of my entire heart in every single piece that I send out. So when I know that somebody truly appreciates it like that, there are no words for the types of emotions that I get when I know that I've connected with somebody about something like that, especially when it comes to reading, especially when it comes to books and literature and reading. So thank you. Thank you for supporting me so long ago and putting up with me.
Of course. And like, I really appreciated how you were like very upfront with how long you thought they were going to take to like put out and everything. I put it on my calendar for like 4 or 6 weeks out or whatever. I was like, I need to like check my package room just to see if they've shown up yet or not. And then like, check around this time. Because I was ready to get them.
Yeah.
But I knew that it was going to take time, and I knew that you had to create them and everything. It was a very fun, like, anticipation period. Where I was like, I know they're coming.
Yeah,
I know
that they're going to come. I swear they're going to come.
Yeah, but like, I never thought twice about the time or anything. It was like, okay, she's an artist. This is how long it takes her. That's great. I'll get them when I get them.
Yep.
I was like, very excited about it.
Surprisingly, painting one back in a day, like it took me about a day to make the first set, one set. And then I went, oh, sure, I can make over 200 of these in 6 weeks. Right. No problem. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I did feel bad because I kept having, and that was part of my growing pains. And that was part of what I was saying, catastrophic success. That was not what we were expecting, anything we could anticipate. And we put ourselves in that position. Definitely lessons learned. And we've definitely made adjustments with things, but, it was one of those situations where we couldn't have possibly known that all of that was going to happen. Like I said, doing something of that scale and that mass, and me having to hand paint and everything going through me at that time, I was the only person who knew how to put bookends together. Now my husband has become quite skilled at, once I get the backs painted, he's able to assemble the rest of them. But it was just me for a long time. That's one of my things is I over communicate. I am the type of person that I believe that 99% of the world's problems can be solved through communication and effective communication. So I over communicate everything. I will overshare before I undershare. You will tell me it's fine. You don't need to tell me that anymore. Long before I leave anybody wondering, well, what's going on? What's happening with this or that? So that was something that was always extremely important to me. Something I heard back from a lot of my customers, they were like, you have over-informed me on my item that's coming to me. I'm not worried about it. I appreciate you letting me know. And I have had so many happy customers and so many loyal customers because of that, because I'm the first one who will be like, it was completely my fault. I didn't get to the post office, or I didn't X, Y, or Z. So I am just really, really big on communication. And I know that there are businesses that kind of shun and kind of close up and say, okay, the less we tell them, the better. But if someone's going to fault me for being honest with them, I can't control that. And I would rather be honest and open with somebody, and them either have a misunderstanding or not be okay with that, than I would leave someone wondering. leave someone questioning what's going on.
But that is funny that feedback that you were getting was almost like, okay, we get it. Like
Yeah,
you're
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 fine.
telling us too much
Yeah.
at this point. You mentioned imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
Have you figured out how to deal with that a little bit, or is it
I have
still
not. Have
very...
you? Like,
No, I'm looking for help here.
so what I'll do is I go through waves with life,
Mhm.
my personality, everything. I just kind of go through waves. And one of those waves is I will do something. I'll create a line. I just have to feel it. I am not a, okay, we have to do it on this date, or hey, you have to do this next. I am very much a feeling in the moment type of person. Especially when it comes to my art. I have to be reading it. It's going to hit me, and that's what I want to make. And that's when I make the signs that I'm the most proud of. Instead of the signs that I like need to make to put out or whatever. So imposter syndrome definitely hits me sometimes because I'll make something like, I still remember when I made my Nikki St. Croix line. I was so proud of that line. I worked so hard on that. And I was so, so proud of how it turned out. I was happy with how different they were and everything else. And then imposter syndrome hits me a few weeks later when it's time to design or make something else. And I go, well, maybe I was just a one hit wonder. Maybe I actually am
Mhm.
not an artist. Maybe none of this is, maybe I'm not able to do this because I can't think of it on the spot. So I'm very hard on myself when it comes to not just being able to just come up with something instantly, because I'll forget that's not how I create. I create through my emotions. I create through my connections. And that's when I
Mhm.
come up with my best ideas. Not gonna lie, when I'm feeling a little vengeful, some of my best designs come when I'm rage designing. But
Ooh.
other than that, a lot of times it's just when inspiration hits.
This is kind of a fun question. How do you celebrate?
How do I
Like if you
celebrate?
had, yeah.
Hmm. I celebrate in lots of really weird ways, I guess. My daughter is 10 and she's been cooking since she was 4. It's something I taught her early. So one of the ways that we celebrate is my daughter loves to cook us dinner or like a special surprise or something. So that's one way that we really celebrate. The first thing I do is I call all of my bookish friends, my other friends that own shops, and my author friends, and my reader friends.
Mhm.
And we kind of celebrate together. I absolutely adore, like, cannot say enough how much I adore the community I'm in. But the main way that we celebrate is we go to Disney or we go to Universal parks. We are park people.
You're park people, you're
Mouse
Disney
ears,
people.
Loungefly backpacks, 50 Spirit jerseys, like the whole shebang. Um, my son had his Make a Wish trip in 2019, in November of 2019, right before they started shutting everything down. And we, like I said before, his neurologist was like, take the trips. But we couldn't for several years. But when we went, that was my first time ever going to Disney. We didn't take vacations when I was younger. And so that was my first time going. That was all my kids' first time going. And we absolutely fell in love with it. I had a lot of anxiety that my son would not like the roller coasters because we just don't really know. He's nonverbal. And so there's not really any way for us to know if he would like it unless we put him on one and saw how it went. So there was a lot of anxiety building up to it, but we got to the parks and he was on his iPad. I want ride. I want ride. I want ride. And the faster and the more they turned upside down, the more he loved it. So he's 14 now, and nothing makes me happier than seeing all of the photos after we get off the ride of us on the ride and just the huge
Yeah.
smile on his face, and how happy it makes my kids. Like my my tank is filled when we go to the parks. We're just park people. Um, so that is how I fill my tank, is I get to see all of the joy that it brings my kids. And I can't work when I'm at the parks. So my phone doesn't exist. None of that, exists. And we're able to just be a family for just a little bit, which is great. My husband is military.
Mhm.
So a lot of our life revolves around that, with moving and him being gone at times, and things like that. So we just find peace at the parks. That is where we find our peace, is going to the parks and just really getting to enjoy that time as a family.
That's amazing.
So that's the big way. That's genuinely the big way I celebrate, is I get online and I book a day at Disney or Universal.
Do you have a favorite thing that you like to cook with your daughter? Cook or bake?
I do. So I make a lot of my family is from Louisiana, and that side of Texas. So we make jambalaya together, and that's one of my favorite things to make with her. She likes to make desserts. So macarons are one of her absolute favorite things to make. So that is our favorite dessert, but like meal. I like the jambalaya because it takes us a long time to make it. It's a long process. It's a lot of doing things together and working together. So that would be my favorite thing to cook with her, just because it just means I get to hold on to her just like a little bit longer. That sounds so cheesy.
No, that's so sweet. Love that. I just recently found out that my dad, I haven't lived at home for a while now, but whenever I go back and visit, I just found out that my dad like really misses when I like would make dessert all the time when I lived with them. So now whenever I go back, I like make sure that I plan making a dessert so that I can like, give my dad like a brownie or a cake or whatever.
I love that.
And I've like started prioritizing that when I'm around them, which I think is really fun. So I think that cooking together and like food is such a bonding thing.
It is.
And I love that you have a cooking and baking thing with your daughter.
I love that you have that with your dad, because I like, not knowing your dad at all, I'm sure that is so special to him. Just being a mom and an older mom, because my oldest is 14, like I can imagine that that's really special. And I'm one of those moms that I'm obsessed with my kids. Like, it's weird. I just love being around my kids all the time. And so I am not looking forward to the day that they go live their own lives.
Do you have a proudest moment in business so far?
Proudest moment in business. Actually, I do.
Okay.
So I do a few conventions. A Polycon and Book Bonanza are the two that I've like done and so far. And I think my proudest moment in business was honestly when I was at a Polycon, and I had a long line of people, and it didn't have to do with the sales. It didn't have to do with any of that. It had to do with getting to look people in the face and them coming up to me, some of them in literal tears, going, "You have no idea how much X, Y, or Z that I bought from you when I got it, and I saw how beautiful it was, what that meant to me." And to hear their kind words about my stuff, and to be, like I said before, be able to connect with them on that has been the highlight over any success financially, over any success of sales or anything like that. That was my height. And my other height was some of the authors that I work with, getting to know them and getting to meet them and getting to see them like as people outside of their job and things like that. Those are the two like just big highs for me as a business, is getting that connection and that involvement and that friendships really with a lot of the authors that I work with and the other businesses that I work with, but genuinely just the people that love my work. Like I said before, sometimes I'm just in awe because I'm like, it came from my brain. Like, this came from my brain. And my husband's like, yes, honey, it did. But to see people connect with that and appreciate that, that's just the biggest. So yeah, I would have to say when I was at a Polycon, getting to meet people face to face, that was the ultimate business high for me over anything else I could have done.
I can only imagine. I think that would be so cool to meet, like, I'm going to call them fans, but people who can like really appreciate your work, your art, like in person. I think that would be so cool.
Yeah. Well, and I had one girl, she was very, very shy, and she goes, "Are you a Firedrake?" And I was like, I am now. From now on, people will address me as a Firedrake from now on. Like, I am so in love with this. So yeah, it was really cool. So that's something my assistant Jessie and I had talked about too. She's been with me for almost 2 years now. But I adore her. She keeps me in line. And she tries to. I'm like a cat chasing a laser pointer most days. That's one thing that her and I talked about was we don't like calling followers or anything fans, which is why we do like the shout out Friday, or we do the follower Friday and stuff like that. Because we are still a very small business. And I still consider every person who buys something from me, I take it very personally. And so I consider them more as friends or acquaintances than I do like fans. This is something that I feel like we all do together, which I really love. And I know that in business, it's you grow, 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 grow. But I genuinely hope that we never lose that.
Just from hearing you say that, I don't think you will, because that's such a thought that's at the forefront of your brain right now that you don't want to lose that. I don't think you will.
Yeah. And I always have people, oh, you need to figure out how to manufacture, you know, how to figure out how to do this. And I'm like, I understand that. And I understand that will get to more people. And we have offered like shirts and different types of merch in our shop to allow to get to more people that can't maybe purchase the designs on signs, but they can on other mediums. But I'm like, that's not what I started this for. I started this to be able to connect with people. And I just really want to continue that. And if that means that my business can't boom and grow, then I'm okay with that. I'm perfectly fine. And I'm perfectly happy with the way that things are going right now.
It kind of brings me directly into my next question.
Okay.
Which is, what is the dream for Firedrake Artistry? Do you have an idea of where you would like it to get to?
I do. It's a very selfish dream, I think. First off, I have the same dream that any girl who lived in the 90s has and watched You've Got Mail. I want to own a bookstore someday. I want to own
Incredible.
Yeah, I want to own a bookstore. I don't care if it's a successful bookstore. I don't care if it's a tiny little bookstore. I just want to own a bookstore someday. I would love to keep small business items in that store from other people I've met in the community and things like that. That's my goal. But another goal I have is something that I didn't really realize until I had been asked this before and I just answered. But I think I want to help run merchandising for authors. And the reason that I say that is because from my side, from my education, two, from my side of being a business owner, and seeing the different dynamics, because I work with big authors, I work with small authors, I work with a big variety. And one thing that I see kind of touches on what I had said before about AI. I see that there's a gap in the industry. There's a lot of no AI and anti-AI in people's profiles and things like that, but nobody's talking about these craft businesses and stuff that are coming up and just everybody's using the same ideas. You see it with a lot of the bigger authors as well. There's 50 different shops that are licensed and 50 different shops that are selling the exact same thing. And it's just kind of like, as a designer, as an artist, you're losing your true artist and your true designers, people that are coming up with those ideas that everyone's using, because it's just so disheartening to see time and time again that none of that is protected. So it is my, not really goal, but I would like to see me connect with smaller authors and be able to help them navigate merchandise and say, okay, if you're going to do merchandising, what do you want it to look like? Okay, well, let's tailor it to that. And let's make sure that we are keeping that in line with your expectations. And at the same time, protecting artists by saying, we're not, you're the person that we're hiring to make this certain type of merchandise. We're going to make sure that if we hire someone else that also makes this type of merchandise, that they're doing different things or they're doing different designs, and that everything's not looking the same across the board. And that way we're offering a variety of merchandise instead of just this grabby thing that it just kind of seems like it's gotten to lately. It seems like there's just been a huge boom lately. which is great. I think there's room at everybody for the table at the table. But I also think that there's an ethical way to do that. And so that is where, like I said, I want to own my little bookstore and just be peace and quiet in my little bookstore. But I would love to help with merchandising with authors that are looking for that. So, and I love helping businesses. I know that if you follow me, you know I do small business Saturdays when I can. I used to do it every Saturday, and now I'm just trying to do it whenever I can. But I love helping small businesses. I was on the phone with 2 small businesses today, helping them through getting stuff set up for their website, getting stuff set up with their taxes and stuff. So I love doing that for other businesses, and I love helping them navigate around getting those types of things set. Yeah, on a very small scale, I would like to see Firedrake Artistry kind of merge into helping others with merchandising.
That's really cool.
And I was doing licensing before licensing got huge, when people just kind of made whatever they wanted to make. And I was like, no, I'm going to email the author and see if that's okay. There were like less than a handful of other shops that were actually licensing at the time. But mostly everyone I talked to was like, oh no, you just make it and send. I'm like, no, I really feel like they should get paid. So
sure.
When I first started, that's what I did. I reached out to authors and was like, hey, is it okay if I make this for you? Some of them had contracts. Some of them said, hey, make whatever you want, do whatever you want, this or that. But I had their approval to do those things. And that's something that's really stuck with me, is making sure that all of my stuff is licensed, because I want to make sure that again, rules. I want to make sure that I am doing ethically right by the authors, especially authors that I admire and love so much. So, I mean, all authors in general, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's just that's a very vague, kind of like when I came up with this. I don't really know. I'm just going to start doing it.
No, and everybody has to start somewhere. So I appreciate that you kind of, I want to say, like, bootstrapped it. Like, you started, you figured it out, you emailed these authors to ask if it was okay. I have only had a little bit of exposure to the licensing world, and that is complicated.
It's very complicated.
Yeah.
And I've had it out with a few people I've been licensed with that I'm still shocked that I'm licensed with them, because I'm like, hey, you're approving someone to plagiarize my art. Do you know this? Well, we don't get in the middle. Okay, but now you do know. I am physically showing you, so you are knowingly profiting off of someone stealing my work. Not stealing, plagiarizing. Okay. Plagiarizing is the legal term I can use.
Got it.
So, but you're profiting off of someone plagiarizing my works. Now you know, though. And in our contract, it says that all artwork has to be approved. I did not approve this. This is very clearly my work. I did not approve this. But we were able to get through it professionally, and we were able to move on and get everything resolved like it should have been. And then everything's been fine. And let's just move forward and go from there. I am also very much I don't hold things personally. Like, it's fine. We can have a disagreement. That is, again, circling back to the good communication. We can have a disagreement. We can have a misunderstanding, and then we can all move forward from there. So that is something I feel very strongly about. And also the fact that I now have circled around and have no idea where we were in this conversation.
That's okay. Do you have certain parameters that you use to select authors?
Yes. If I read their book and I like it, I will contact them.
I love that.
Isn't that ridiculous?
No.
But like I said, I can't just design out of nowhere. I have to feel it. So I just read and I take in as much as I can. I will have occasionally authors reach out to me, and I will say, I will read your books and I will get back to you.
Okay.
I'm the same way with reviews and stuff on my page. You won't find anything but a 5-star review on my page, because I won't review it if I don't think it's a 5-star. That's not my place. I'm one of those people that I don't feel that's my place.
I agree with the reviewing part. Sorry, one second.
Yeah,
I won't post a Goodreads review if I don't think it's a 5-star, because I'm like, then it just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Like, there's somebody else there who's gonna love it.
Yep.
I bought the book. I don't have to review it if it's not a 5-star.
Yep. That's kind of how I feel about it too. But yeah, I have done authors that I know. So this is a funny story. So Stacey McEwen, who wrote Chasm, I stalked her for a while. Not really. I followed her on TikTok and I loved her TikToks, and I found out she wrote a book. So I went on Amazon and I bought the book, and I was so excited about it. And I shared it on social media and everything else. And she was so sweet. She made a comment. She wrote me a message, how thankful she was and everything. But she made a comment about how that book wasn't supposed to be out. And I was like, wait, what? Apparently a publisher had picked her up, but Amazon had already printed some copies, and I got one of the copies that they printed. Well, then I felt bad because I'm like, well, I wouldn't have bought it if I had known that you didn't want it out there. I mean, there's people that are going to buy it and try and flip them or whatever. Anyways, but I felt bad because that was my first like introduction into what authors go through when they self-publish, but then get picked up by publishers. And so I have just I haven't done any signs for her or her series because I haven't gotten anything back from the publishing company. None of those things bother me. If an author doesn't want to work with me or they don't want me to make signs or they say, that does not deter me at all in the terms of liking them as an author, liking their work or any of that. I have had a couple, 2 authors that I signed with, and then it just kind of didn't work out. I was like, you know what? Maybe this isn't for me. One, I made the mistake of signing with them first. I hadn't read their books, but all my friends had, and they were like, oh my gosh, they're amazing. And they were like, hey, we're doing stuff for them. You need to do stuff for them. And I started reading their book, and their book was definitely not for me. I am very much a fantasy reader, and I need a happy ending, and I need things like that. I have too many real world things going on in my real life that I don't want to read about certain things. So it just wasn't for me. And I was like, love you, adore you, love your writing. I can't make things, you know what I mean? Like, so that has happened before. But traditionally now that I've had those learning curves and stuff like that, I have, or learning pains, I guess I should say. I really just connect with authors, whether I meet them at a convention or I've read their books, and I just say, hey, I have this idea. Is it okay if I make this? I don't look for popular authors. I don't look for, hey, this is what's trending right now. Let me go get this author or this or that. Because it would show in my work. If I did that, it would absolutely show in my work. And I don't want that. I don't want to lose that. I have enough imposter syndrome as it is. I don't want to lose that.
Oh, for sure. Like, you have to fully believe in whatever you're making. I love that you don't go after like trends or the size of the author or anything. It's just like whether or not you resonated with the book.
Because at the end of the day, I make these to go on my shelves.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I see so many of them too.
I want them to look good on my shelf. So what I do is I make something I'm passionate about. If it's not a licensed one, then I go ahead and sell it. If it is licensed, then then I'll contact the author and go that way. But at the end of the day, I've read something I really liked. I made something I really liked. And now I want to share it with everybody else. But I definitely don't go into things going, how am I going to make a profit from this? That profit doesn't drive me. So that is another reason why with my communication and when I tell people, hey, if you want a refund, just let me know. I'll refund you. That it's because profit doesn't drive me. So, I mean, I know a lot of businesses that feel very strongly, and because they're businesses, you have to be a business too. So I understand that as well, but that's just me personally. It doesn't drive me. So I just kind of create what I like. And if other people like it too, I think that's fantastic. And if they don't, then I just don't make more of them and we'll make something else instead.
That's so cool. Do you have any advice that you would give your younger self? Either about business or about life? I'm springing this on you. I know I didn't include this in my question list.
No, it's fine. I would say it's not as big as you think it is. Everything that you are stressing about and you have anxiety for, and everything that you think is falling down around you because you didn't get this order out, or because you didn't get this sign designed, or because you didn't read these 5 books this week. It is not as big of a deal as you think it is. And you're not going to remember that in 2 months from now. Because there will be something else for you to worry about, or something else for you to fixate on, or something else that you think is revolving around the world. When in all honesty, it's just, my brain is just overworking. And I just need to sit back and realize this is just what's big right now. This isn't necessarily what's going to be big tomorrow.
I absolutely adore that. Well, that mostly wraps up my questions. Okay. Where can the reader or the readers, the listeners, find you online?
I am on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram. I am definitely the most active on my Instagram. Instagram is just my home. I'm unfortunately not as active on the others, but also on my website at firedrakeartistry.com. I am working very hard to get my blog fully up and running instead of just an occasional tiptoe in on my reviews. And I also have lots of other bookish shops listed that I adore and I work with. So yeah, that's where they can find me. Instagram and my website.
Awesome. And the Instagram is just Firedrake Artistry?
At Firedrake Artistry.
Perfect. And same thing on TikTok?
Same thing on TikTok, same thing on Facebook. Yep.
Gotta love consistency.
I do. I that was one thing when I started trademarking my name and all of that kind of stuff. My attorney goes, "This is a dream." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Usually I have to charge," he charged me less because he said, "Usually it's a week worth of going through to make sure that the name isn't consistent with other people in the business and they sell something completely different or they service something completely different." He said, "Firedrake is not a name that's used." He said, "There were 5 out of the total of, sometimes I have thousands, tens of thousands of ones that I have to go through." He said, "There were 5 with your name when I went to register it." And I was like, okay, well, that's cool. So it's definitely unique. It's worked in the fluke coming up with the name and the just messing around really turned into a brand that I'm very, very proud of. I'm excited about, and I feel like helps define me. I love dragons. I love, like I said, I love Tolkien and all things Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. And anything, I mean, oh God, I have an articulated dragon right here. Like it's a problem. It's a real problem.
Oh, gorgeous.
Thanks.
Did you make that or did you buy that from somebody else?
Oh no, I bought this in North Carolina like a year ago from a candy store. There was a teenage boy in high school that had a 3D printer. And so he printed these and his mom let him put it at the candy shop at the register. And they're roses.
Oh my gosh,
so
I want one.
He's a succulent dragon and he's iridescent. So I've had him forever.
That's so cool.
But yes, my obsession with dragons and everything else is just, so I'm very excited about Fourth Wing and all the other dragon books and things that people are really like excited about and highlighting. Because it's dragons. Dragons are like getting their time and I love it.
We need more dragon consumability. Like we need more dragon books. We need more dragon shows.
Oh, yes.
I'm a proud advocate for the dragons.
Yes. So it's definitely our time. It's definitely the time of the dragons and I'm loving it.
The time of the dragons. I'm so here for it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for an incredible interview.
Yes, thank you. Like I said, I'm so honored. I appreciate you interviewing me or even considering me to be interviewed at all. I'm so glad I got to talk to you.
I want you to know that you were one of the first 3 people I thought of.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you guys so much for making it all the way to the end of the first episode of the Passion Paycheck podcast. This episode was recorded over a year ago and was kind of hard for me to watch through and edit, honestly. I was so excited and nervous, but I felt like this conversation with Traci from Firedrake Artistry went really, really well. And it was so much fun getting to talk to her about her business, how she comes up with her designs, how she works with authors, and it's always just so much fun to get to talk to other creative people who love what they do and make their passion their paycheck. I would really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe if you have not already. Give us a 5-star review on Spotify or whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. And if you really want to help me spread the word about this podcast, you can send this episode to a friend. If you choose to post about it on Facebook, you can tag me at Sara Lubratt Writes and Passion Paycheck Podcast. Thank you again to Traci from Firedrake Artistry for joining me on the first ever episode. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next one.